typically a time. About 4 courses down there. One during the day. Three students. Yeah. It's great. Call me. I will. I'll call you. Then you can reach me. Thanks. Get together anytime. Take camera 3.
All right, tonight. We're so grateful that you're all here. This is one of our favorite traditions in the Department of Communication, to have the speech showcase, Weaver Speaks, here every semester. This is our 13th time doing the speech showcase, and we were talking before this that every time we do this, it feels like the speeches get stronger and the topics get more important, and we just see the skill level of our students improving every time. So we're thrilled that this has become such a wonderful tradition at Weaver State. We want to acknowledge a few special people in the audience. We have our university president, Brad Mortensen, here in attendance. And we have a special guest, Amir Jackson. Where's Amir? Oh, coming in. So, Amir's the founder of the nonprofit Nurture the Creative Mind, and is tonight's recipient of the Freedom Through Rhetoric Award. And we're just very grateful that he's been here. He's going to speak to us a little bit later, but thank you for coming. We should have our Dean of the Lindquist College of Arts and Humanities. Is Shepard here yet? No, not yet. I will make a note so you can send a strongly worded email. Please be here on time next time. That's okay. We'll let her in the doors when she comes. We should just give her a round of applause when she walks in. We also want to give a very heartfelt thank you to those judges who served on our selection committee on Selection Saturday. So we have Nicola Corbin. She is actually teaching a class right now, and she will be here a little bit later, but she is an associate professor in the Department of Communication and is the director of the Teaching and Learning Forum here at Weaver State. Dr. Nathan Rodriguez is an assistant professor in the Department of Communication. Stacy Bernal is a TED Talk Ogden 2020 speaker and soon to be member of the Ogden School Board. Shelley Florence was a finalist in last year's speech showcase and performed extremely well, and we decided to bring her back, and she's going to speak again tonight. Just kidding. That's like everybody's worst nightmare. We'd like to excuse, oh, there's our dean. Welcome, Dean. Now I can cross out my note and send you a strongly worded email. Don't send it. Conspicuously absent tonight is our department chair, Ann Villalobos, who was our final member of the selection committee on Saturday. Apparently, she loves her one child more than she loves all of us in this room combined. Because she decided to go attend her daughter's school play instead of being here. Can you believe that? So when Ann watches this later on, I think I will speak for all of us when I say it stings a little bit. That she chose a child over all of us. So we will we'll allow that for tonight. Usually the duties of the MC are conducted by our basic course director, Alex Lancaster. But lucky for all of you, he's on sabbatical this year. And so he's doing research on a cruise right now. So happy for him. So you're all stuck with me. I'm the JV version of the MC tonight. We really can't do this without acknowledging all of the tireless work that our 1020 instructors do every day throughout the semester. So if you are an instructor for COM 1020 or have taught COM 1020, if you can stand up, and we'll give you a nice big round of applause. 1 second that you've never taught to anyone? No way. Wow. We'd also like to welcome all of our participants who participated, who were representative of their classes. They did an excellent job on Saturday. We really appreciated their really fantastic speeches. We welcome all of the parents and friends and other administrators and faculty and all of you students who really desperately needed that 10 points of extra credit to get through your class. We know why you're here. It's good though. We're glad that you're here. So for those of you that don't know what the speech showcase is, so we have usually somewhere around 20 to 25-ish introduction to public speaking courses every semester. And in 2015, we thought that it would be a great, I say we, I wasn't even here, but those people who were here thought it would be a great idea to showcase some of the top speeches that have been performed throughout this semester. And so they created this speech showcase as a way to bring these students out of the classroom and allow them to share their speeches with a wider audience. And since then, it's just grown and grown, and it's been a really great thing. So every class chooses one speech that they think was the best or most representative of their class. And that person comes on a Saturday morning, some of them very early, like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I know. It's a huge sacrifice. And they deliver their speeches. And our selection committee has a very difficult job of selecting which of those speeches are presented tonight in the speech showcase. And so they selected 5 speeches that I was here on Saturday, I watched them, and I think you're all going to be extremely impressed with the quality of these speeches. So right now, we would like to acknowledge all of those students who represented their classes in Selection Saturday. So if we could have, let's see, how is this going to work? Even just a second. How are we doing this, Brent? I've already forgotten. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. When I call your name, come down here, receive your certificate and your honorarium. So first, Rebecca Buchanan. Aaron Cornhole. Megan Bryan. Matthew Buckler. Porter Lance. Morgan Law. Ellie Maurer. Sarah Nielsen. Morgan Port. Elena Ruiz. Cameron Shepard. Joseph Stamps. Joseph Trotter. David Carrillo. All right, thank you so much to those participants. We're now going to introduce the finalists and the presentations that they're going to be presenting to us. So our first speech is going to be by Ellie Maurer. Ellie was born in South Weber and calls Ogden home. She attended Northridge High School, and she is studying special education here at Weber State. She's a junior and hopes to be an in-home therapist for parents of autistic children when she graduates. Her instructor for 1020 was David Collins. The title of her presentation is The Spectrum.
Just one second, I'm waiting on some visuals. Perfect. Overgeneralization. This is something that has likely impacted every person in this room. Maybe it's something large, such as you play a certain sport, so you're considered to be cocky, or you're studying in a certain field, so you must be a nerd. But maybe it's something more personal. Maybe it's your own last name. Maybe you're a Burwell, and the Burwells are known for being loud and outgoing, so everyone assumes you should be too, but you would consider yourself more quiet and reserved. Or maybe it's a disorder you've been diagnosed with, and people assume that you have to have certain traits and behaviors, but you don't. Tonight, I would like to talk to you about the autism spectrum disorder. This is something that's very important to me. I work as a behavioral technician in a preschool for autistic children. So not only do I help them manage and work through their behaviors, I also help them learn and prepare for higher education. And what I have come to realize is that as we, the general public, have a greater understanding of what the autism spectrum is, we can help these children live to their fullest potential. So today I would like to tell you a little bit about what autism is, understanding the importance of a spectrum disorder, and what this understanding can do for us. So when it comes to understanding autism, it's a little difficult because not even doctors can tell you what causes it. It's one of those, well, maybe it has to do with genetics and that's about all we know. But one theory that's well accepted is something that's going on in the brain. Our brain is full of connectors. We have all these neurotransmitters, and we're sending lots of signals to understand what's around us and to process. However, and at a point in early childhood, we go through what's called hedging, where all of these connections are hedged to fit our brain, so to speak. In the brain of an autistic child, this hedging doesn't happen quite as we would expect, which makes the brain function faster in some ways and slower in others. But it definitely adds extra sensitivities. Perhaps you've seen a child such as this, covering their ears, and you're not sure why. They can sometimes hear the sound of the light bulbs when they're turned on. Then I imagine that if we could hear the sound of the light bulbs and it sounded like nails on a chalkboard to us, we would also want to plug our ears or hum to drown that noise out. A couple other traits of autism are as follows. This little boy in the green is doing what's called stimming, and it's a physical reaction to something that's visually pleasing. So perhaps they see a pattern on the wall, or they see the microwave time counting down, or this young man is watching the waves crash against the beach. And that physical reaction often looks like this, like a flap, or sometimes it's the fingers twitching down below. It manifests itself in many ways. Another trait of autistic children is that they tend to play with toys in non-traditional ways, such as picking up a race car and spinning it and watching the wheels instead of racing it around the car, or drawing lines on the roofs of their doll houses instead of playing with the dolls, or even lining up their dinosaurs instead of growling "rawr." And finally, autistic children tend to be very sensory seeking. In our classroom, to help them satisfy this need, we'll take breaks where we jump on a small trampoline, or we play on a crash pad, or we wear weighted vests to help them out. Well, one way that they'll do it for themselves is by walking on their toes, and then they can help satisfy that need. So now that we've talked about some of the traits of autistic children, let's not get caught up, because autism is not a one-size-fits-all. It is a spectrum disorder, meaning there are so many different traits, personalities, everyone is an individual in there. And to demonstrate that, I would like to talk to you about a few of my students. And of course, for privacy's sake, I'll change their name. But I want to tell you in particular about two little boys. They are both 4, so now you kind of know where they stand. Thomas loves numbers and letters. His current favorite toy is either my keyboard so that he can type out letters, or the toy cash register so he can type out numbers. He loves them so much that at lunch, when he gets his milk carton, we have to take it from him and pour it into a cup, or he will continue to just read the ingredients over and over again and forget to eat. However, he can't form a proper sentence. He can only echo. So he'll come up to you and say something like, "Do you need help, please? Are you hungry?" Which of course he knows when he hears those phrases, he gets help or he gets food. So if Thomas comes up to you and says, "Do you need to use the bathroom?" I recommend you help him find one pretty quickly. And then there's Luke. Luke is what we consider nonverbal. Though his speech skills are improving, he can only say a number of words. However, he's very intelligent. If you lay alphabet cards out in front of him and say, "Hand me the letter G," he would be able to do it. He also uses Velcro strips to say what he wants. So if it's breakfast time, it'll say, "I want cereal, please. I want Pop-Tarts, please." He can say, "I see," and that's his way of communicating. So if we were to just look at these two students, only one of them walks on their toes. Only one of them has any interest in toys, traditionally or non-traditionally, but both of them stim. And that just shows some of the traits and characteristics. It doesn't even shed light on their personalities. And boy, do we have personalities in that classroom. We have Carly, who's like a little mom, and she'll be the first one to go up to her friends and say, "You okay?" if they fall. But she'll also be the first one to put her hands on the hips and tell you to clean up. And then we also have Jackson, who is the complete class clown and wants to make sure everyone's laughing, even though he's only 3 and also nonverbal. So what does this knowledge do for us? Hopefully it helps us not be critical of things that we don't understand. Why is that child flapping their arms? I wonder why they're always walking on their toes. We now understand a little bit more of why that might be, and that gives us the chance to free them from this overgeneralization and to see them as individuals, to get to know them for who they uniquely are and not try and push them into this box of my cousin had autism and this is how they behaved, or my classmate had autism and this is what I'm expecting, but to grant them the chance to be themselves. And that is my hope for us all, that in the future as we're interacting with people on the spectrum, we'll take time to get to know them, their personalities, set realistic expectations for them, and allow them to be who they are. Because nobody told the autistic child to walk on their toes. But in a world that loves rules and structures and order, sometimes we start to tell the autistic child to walk on their toes. So join me today in getting to know them for them and not what their label says. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ellie. Our next presenter is Morgan Port. Morgan was born in Layton, Utah, and calls Ogden, Utah home. Morgan attended Ogden High School and is currently majoring in 3D animation here at Weber State. They are a sophomore and have professional goals of becoming an animator for the Cartoon Network and moving to Canada. Morgan's 1020 instructor is Dr. Nicole Deffenbaugh, and the title of their presentation is Accepting Transgender Identities.
My life, no one could remember my name. I would hear names similar to my birth name, but rarely would someone say it correctly. And for the longest time, this is why I thought, I hate my name. And I always felt out of place in my body. And after years of self-discovery and acceptance, and a trip to the doctor where I told her, I don't feel comfortable as myself, here's some of the things that I've been experiencing. And she looks me in the eye and she says, what you're experiencing is gender dysphoria. And that's when it hit that my name is Morgan and I am non-binary. Being non-binary falls under the transgender umbrella. And being transgender just simply means an individual does not identify with their gender assigned at birth. And as a community, we face a lot of struggles. Our society needs to improve how we treat transgender individuals through education and normalization, because transgender youth are statistically higher to attempt suicide. The cause is a lack of education, and the solutions are to educate and normalize. How many gender nonconforming individuals attempt suicide? As stated by Ashley Austin in Suicidality Among Transgender Youth, written in 2020, 82% of transgender individuals have suicide ideation, while 40% have attempted suicide. I am a part of that 40%. Back in 2015, I attempted suicide due to feeling like I couldn't be myself. I felt like there was something wrong with me and that it was something that I couldn't change, so it was better off to die. But now I am much better and much more confident in who I am. And this is why we need to see why this is caused. The cause is a lack of education. The lack of education on transgender identities is systemic. In the American education system alone, as stated by the Pew Research Center in 2022, 41% of Americans oppose transgender identities being taught to our children. 38% approve, and 21% are undecided. This indecision and lack of acceptance comes from fear. We are often afraid of things that we do not understand, and new people and new experiences can be terrifying for us, but we must work together to overcome this fear. And how we do that is through education. We can become better educated by volunteering at local pride centers. There's one currently under construction in Ogden, Utah, and there's one currently in Salt Lake City. There's also the Gay Straight Alliance here on campus. It is open to all Weber State University students. They meet in room 280 in the Student Services Center at 1 p.m. on Mondays. What else we can do is go to websites like thetrevorproject.org to learn more about the transgender community and the LGBTQ community. Our next step is normalization. People should be able to ask for each other's pronouns just as comfortably as if you were asking for somebody's name. A great example is me saying, hello, my name is Morgan. I use they, them pronouns. What is your name and what are your pronouns? It's not a question that's impolite or awkward. It's just a question that builds a stronger connection in our community. And as stated by Dr. Annalise Singh in the podcast of Speaking on Psychology in 2015, using the language that empowers transgender people means using the names, pronouns, and language that they prefer. And this will lead to us building a stronger community. To conclude, I have explained why we as a society need to improve how we treat transgender individuals through education and normalization, because suicide is high among our community. The causes are the lack of education, and our solutions are to educate and to normalize. Now that I am comfortable and confident in who I am, I hope to be an inspiration to others to be accepting of themselves and accepting of others around them. Now everyone here knows a transgender person. My name is Morgan Port. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Our next speaker is Joseph Trotter. Joseph was born in Ogden and calls Ogden home today. He attended Ogden High School and is majoring in communication teaching here at Weber State. He's a sophomore and hopes to someday be a high school principal. His instructor for Communication 1020 is David Berg, and the title of his presentation is Stop Being a Hater.
Quick.
The first time that I genuinely could say that I felt like I experienced hate was when I was 13 years old. And that's because when I was 13 years old, Taylor Swift released a new album titled Red. And on it was a song called 22. I hated that song. It was everywhere. I heard it in the car, I heard it in the morning, I heard it at night. And a lot of people probably didn't like this song, but I had an extra reason to hate it, and that's because I had a little sister. And her favorite song was 22 by Taylor Swift. She would sing it at all hours of the day. And I didn't know what to do with these feelings. And so all I could do was categorize it all together into one feeling of hate towards Taylor Swift. I hadn't heard all of her songs, I didn't know a lot about her, but anytime I was asked, I would say, I hated Taylor Swift. Now, a lot of us might feel like that's something that we've experienced. We just didn't like something and we fell into this trap. Well, 13-year-old me made a discovery. Anytime that Taylor Swift was mentioned, I didn't have to know anything about Taylor Swift to carry out that conversation. I could just talk about the things that I disliked. I could talk about how I thought she was overrated or overplayed or everyone just liked her and you're just on the bandwagon. But that was a really cool discovery because I could do that in almost any other area of my life. Let's say there was a movie I hadn't seen. Instead of saying I hadn't seen the movie, I could just fold my arms, sit back and be like, well, Fast and Furious movies are dumb. Only dumb people watch them. Let's say there's an area of my life that I didn't feel confident in. I was incredibly short and uncoordinated, and I hated basketball. Because instead of confronting that I was just short and uncoordinated like I was, I could just claim basketball was for stupid people, and I'm not stupid. Being a hater is really easy to do, but I want to draw a quick definition. There is a difference between hate and being a hater. To hate something, like I defined for you here, is to feel intense or passionate dislike for someone or something. But I have my own definition for hater because there's nothing in Webster's about it. And that is that being a hater is a specific type of hate. It is about closing your mind and only sharing those negative, hateful opinions. Now, that might not seem like that big of a deal. You could say that you hate onions, or you hate specific kinds of food, or you hate specific kinds of environments, like I hate swing dancing, that's something I could say. But there's things that it starts to take things over. Now, that's a friendly principle, but let's make it a little bit less friendly. Let's say there's someone that has similar feelings about a person. Eventually, they discriminate that person. They have that same feeling about a group of people, and all of a sudden, they're racist. They have a feeling about a specific kind of organization or people or how they live their life, and they become a bigot and practice bigotry. Being a hater really matters, and today I want to talk about how we can overcome that. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is why it's so easy to be a hater. Because the first thing is that it's comfortable. There was actually a group of psychologists in Iran, and they did a study. And with the people that they talked about, and they talked about the things that they hated, they found that those feelings of hate were linked to two main emotions: the little green monster of jealousy and fear. A lot of the people felt jealous because maybe this group was getting a spotlight, or maybe something was happening that they felt like was unfair. They felt fear because maybe they didn't understand something all the way, or something really felt like it was going to be changing their lives. They became haters to these specific ideas or people or things because they didn't necessarily understand it. When I was little, I had a ton of onion rings and I threw up. And I decided that I hated onions. I was afraid of what those onions were going to do to me, and so I would never have onions. I felt jealous of basketball, and I don't need to repeat that again. But it is also easy as a society for us to be haters as a group because of social media. Social media is structured around getting your attention. And what's a stronger emotion than hate? It's really easy for companies to put out popular headlines to make you hate something. If I saw something when I was 13 about Taylor Swift and why she was bad, I would click on it. And then I'd get grouped together with people that had the same ideas. Social media is built to do that. Until eventually we have echo chambers with similar ideas. Let's turn over to that negative ideal mindset. Let's say there's a group of people that have bad feelings towards a group of other people. Now they're all together. All their opinions are together. And there's no source of anything else. Now there is a solution to being a hater. And a lot of people would think automatically the opposite of hate is love. And that's true. But that's not a really good first step. That's quite a bit of a leap. But I do have a first step that I would encourage everyone to make, and that is to be curious. Curiosity is also a strong feeling. It's a strong desire to learn or know something. And hate is so natural, but curiosity is too. All of us are naturally curious. Now, before I want to get into how I was curious, I want to talk about someone who was much more curious than me. That was a man named Daryl Davis. If you've ever heard this name, you know that he did some remarkable things, but let me explain what he did to you. Daryl Davis was a former African-American jazz musician, and slowly over time, he grew some feelings about the KKK. Naturally, this was a group of people that he could hate, but Daryl Davis decided to choose curiosity. Individually, with 46 people, he had interviews over the phone or in person, talking to these members of the KKK. Because he was naturally curious and he wanted to see those good things, he got good things out of that. Because of Daryl Davis, 200 people and more have left the KKK. His impact from being curious had a tremendous impact, not just on his life, but on the lives of people who he had every right to be hateful for. Now, I'm not encouraging everyone to directly confront their greatest enemy, but there are some things that you can do to avoid being hateful and to be curious. The first thing is to show tolerance. It's really easy to be tolerant. You don't have to show judgment. You don't have to be hateful or even say anything when you don't understand it. You can take an opportunity to let your curiosity start by just listening, paying attention, making observations. The next step is to try new things. Now, this could be food or music or movies, or maybe it's a new ideology. Maybe it's just listening to somebody. And last, I would encourage you to practice positivity. My life has been benefited greatly by being curious. And it's not just with not being hateful to people or groups, but it's the small things too. That's where I have my surprise I hid up here. In my hands I have Red by Taylor Swift. I bought this CD earlier this year, and that's because I chose to be curious. I had a little sister who happened to be an expert on Taylor Swift. And her and I had a few conversations. From those conversations, I learned that Taylor Swift maybe had other songs than 22. I don't need to talk about her success today, but for me, I have become a bit of a Swiftie myself. And that's because I chose to be curious. I would encourage everybody to be curious and to avoid being a hater. And most importantly, take the opportunity to ask those questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph. Our next presenter is Cameron Shepard. She was born in Ogden and now calls Clearfield, Utah home. She attended Clearfield High School and is majoring in piano performance in the music department at Weber State. She's a freshman, and her professional goals are to teach and perform piano. She's my student, so I love her. The title of her presentation is Stopping the Spread.
Earlier this year, I started having experiences out of the ordinary. Now, these experiences grew frequent enough to where it was happening on a daily basis. What I was experiencing was visual and auditory hallucinations. As time increased, so did the severity of these hallucinations. I began to see strangers in my home and hear voices that were very negative towards me. And because of this, I made an appointment with a psychiatrist, and after multiple visits, he was able to diagnose me with schizophrenia. Having known almost nothing about this mental disorder, my life was completely flipped upside down. Now, you may or may not know someone with schizophrenia, but it affects roughly 1 in every 300 adults. Through my personal experience with this mental disorder, I have been able to uncover a hidden issue. There is a stigma against people with schizophrenia. Now, today I would like to talk to you about what schizophrenia is, the stigma behind this disorder, and why it can be harmful, and what you can do in your part to help change this social issue for the better. But before we begin talking about this stigma, I must first tell you about what schizophrenia is. So, according to the Mayo Clinic in 2020, schizophrenia is defined as a serious mental disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally. Schizophrenia may result in some combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking, and behavior that impairs daily functioning and can be disabling. Schizophrenia can be divided into two different categories when talking about these symptoms: positive and negative symptoms. While positive symptoms sound like they can be a good thing, they actually include things like hallucinations, delusions, and movement disorders. Negative symptoms include things like monotone speech, inability to experience fulfillment, and extreme isolation. Because of these symptoms, it makes it very hard for someone with schizophrenia to go about their daily lives. It can also separate one's mind from the real world. Now that we've talked a little bit about what schizophrenia is, we can begin to break down this stigma that we talked about earlier. For example, when someone without this disorder tries to understand the experience of schizophrenia, they often get caught up on the hallucinations aspects. Now, this can be because it is hard to fully understand what these hallucinations entail unless you can personally experience them. As humans, we tend to reject what we cannot understand, and myself, including other people with schizophrenia, often feel isolated and cut off from people who do not have this mental disorder. Another stigma is that the people with schizophrenia are dangerous. Now, this can become because of the auditory hallucinations in which we experience. It can be perceived that we can act on these hallucinations and cause harm for other people. Now, these hallucinations do have a tendency to be negative. According to the American Psychiatric Association in 2020, it states that the best approach that most people with schizophrenia are no more dangerous or violent than people of the general population. It also goes on to state that while limited mental health resources in the community may lead to homelessness or frequent hospitalization, it is a misconception that people with schizophrenia are dangerous or violent or live in hospitals. Now, stereotypes often form from one extreme event to that people remember a specific thing about. For example, you could have heard of someone who was dangerous, homeless, or incapable who had schizophrenia. Now, this one instance contributes to an entire stereotype, which can be very harmful for people battling this stigma and battling schizophrenia. It is important for us to be able to understand and recognize these stigmas so we can better put a stop to the spread of this misinformation. I remember when my symptoms first started showing up, I was terrified to tell anyone because I didn't want to be perceived as crazy, and I had no idea who would actually believe me. But when I finally told my mom about this, she didn't know how she could help me because of the stigma surrounding this and the misinformation from this disorder. But once we were finally able to understand what was actually going on, we were able to receive the help that I needed, a luxury in which some people never get the chance of. According to the National Library of Medicine in 2017, it states that the best approaches for stopping the spread of schizophrenia are as follows: social protests or activism, education of the public, and the communication with the mentally impaired are some ways that stand out. I hope I have been able to inform you tonight about what schizophrenia is, the stigma behind this mental disorder, and why it can be harmful, and what you can do in your part to help change this social issue for the better. I hope that you can take your newly found knowledge and apply it into the real world today, making it easier for people with schizophrenia to seek the treatment and help that they need. Thank you.
Wow, Cameron, that was a great speech. I wonder who taught you how to do that. Our next speech will be delivered by David Carrillo. David was born in Ecuador and calls Clearfield, Utah home. He attended Bountiful High School. His major at Weber State is social work, and he's a junior. His professional goals are to get a master's in social work, work as a counselor with adolescents, specializing in death and grieving. His 1020 instructor is Stephen Salmon, and the title of his presentation is Darkness Can Show Us the Light.
I'm in the back seat of a vehicle, being driven in circles, with as many turns being taken as possible, all in an attempt to confuse my sense of direction. After about 15 minutes of this, I am then kindly asked to step out of the vehicle, reminded in the skills I have learned over the last 6 months, and asked to find my way back to the starting point. But now, imagine doing all this without the use of your sight. My name is David Carrillo, and I have Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome. At the age of, no, sorry, my bad. Disability is not inability. It is adaptability. To be ever indefatigable and to be sanguine in the face of overwhelming odds. These 3 statements are what define my character, and it is what I would be talking about. Disability is not inability. It is adaptability. In his speech, Blindness, a Left-Handed Dissertation, Dr. Kenneth Jernigan uses the analogy of how the world is built for the right-handed person. Yet, the left-handed person must learn to navigate and treat it as a mere nuisance. So too for the blind, for the world is built and planned with the sighted in mind. Yet, we blind individuals must learn to navigate and adapt. At the age of 7, I lost the vision in my right eye, and at 24, the vision in my left eye began to give out. For about 6 months, the doctors attempted to restore my sight, but to no avail. This put me into a state of depression, indolence, and overwhelming darkness. Now, I can't tell you exactly what it was that clicked in me, but one day I decided to get up, brush it off, and go back for more. Over the next 2 years, I learned the basics of Braille and orientation and mobility. In 2016, I received my guide dog, Deacon, who opened up a slew of opportunities for me. Fast forward to 2018, where I enrolled in an intense 9-month program that I attended 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Now, among my favorite classes there was woodshop, where I learned to use a table saw and other power tools, all without the use of my sight. And yet, the most invaluable class to me was my orientation and mobility class, because it taught me to find my cardinal directions just by feeling the sun, and to be able to travel to unknown locations to me with a sense of moxie. I originally went to the center to get enough skills to obtain a job, but halfway in, I decided I didn't just want a job, I wanted a career. To be ever indefatigable is to persist tirelessly. In 2011, I received my associate's degree in criminal justice at ITT Technical Institute. Fully expecting to go right into the bachelor's program, instead, admission tells me that my degree is no longer accredited, meaning I would have to do my general education from the beginning. Now, it would have been quite easy for me to say, well, I gave it the old college try, and no one would have faulted me for it. But capitulation is not in my nature. I was quite nervous to do math as a blind individual, and although it did take me 2 to 3 times as much to complete the problems, I did complete all of my required math courses within the first attempt. I am currently 70% done with my bachelor's, and I fully intend to go into my master's. To be sanguine in the face of overwhelming odds. To be sanguine is to remain positive whilst enduring immense hardships. I've had to endure 2 tragic Tuesdays in my life. GeneVision.org tells us that Axenfeld-Rieger syndrome, is a genetic disease that affects every 1 in 100,000 people, affecting midline areas such as the eyes, the thyroid, the heart. For me, it affected my eyes. For my son, it affected his eyes and his heart. On Tuesday, May 5th, 2020, my 3-year-old son, Lucian, passed away from congestive heart failure. To this day, I still can't stand the sounds of defibrillators on shows or movies. The CDC tells us that suicide is a leading contributor of death in the United States, with nearly 46,000 people committing suicide every year. On Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, my sister that lived with us joined that number. Now, these vicissitudes are enough to break anyone. But for however many times I may fall, I will get up again. Because I live for my son Lucian. I live for my sister Eveluna. My achievements will become their achievements. My victories, their victories. And in conclusion, life is what we make of it. Disability can become a mere nuisance. Perseverance can see us through hardships. And optimism is key to survival. And remember that sometimes the darkness can show us the light. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Could you all please join with me one more time, giving a big round of applause for all of our speakers tonight. Could we have Dr. Jean Norman and President Brad Mortensen come up and present our finalists with their honorariums? First, Ellie Maurer, who delivered the speech, The Spectrum. Morgan Port, who delivered the speech, Accepting Transgender Identities. Joseph Trotter, who delivered the speech, Stop Being a Hater. Cameron Shepard, who delivered the speech, Stopping the Spread. And David Carrillo, who delivered the speech, Darkness Can Show Us the Light. We will now have the presentation of the Freedom Through Rhetoric Award.
Amir Jackson, an Air Force veteran and Weaver State alum, founded Nurture the Creative Mind in 2007 to give young people the validation he received at age 12 from an aunt. "You're a good writer. You should keep at it," she said. And his life was transformed. In the past 15 years, his nonprofit has used the path of creativity to empower about 25,000 youngsters and help them find their voice and their worth. That work has brought Amir numerous accolades: 2 Ogden Mayor's Awards, the National Newman Civic Fellows Award, the Red Cross Heroes, Recognition Award, the Governor's Change Leader Award, WSU Salutes Award, and now the Communication Department's Freedom Through Rhetoric Award. The best one, of course. Beyond Nurture the Creative Mind, Amir stays very busy, bringing organizations in Ogden together for some remarkable events. He is a TEDx Fellow, one of the founding members of TEDx Ogden, and a former TEDx project manager. He is a former Ogden Arts Festival director, as well as the founder-director of Ídolos Rectos Ogden. He's a co-founder of NAACP, the WSU chapter, communication co-chair of Weaver's Alumni Association Board, and board development director for the ACLU Utah. That's a busy guy. Make Ogden Purple, a fun collaboration between Ogden City and Weaver State, was his idea. It is helping to bring the Ogden community closer to the campus, and if anybody went to the Purple Paw Parade, it was a hoot. All the puppies dressed up for Weaver's homecoming. It is an honor to introduce you to Amir Jackson, our current Freedom Through Rhetoric Award recipient. Please come forward, Amir. And a lovely plant in our favorite color.
Thank you very much. It is important to me that I start by establishing a couple of key elements that I hope that you both understand and believe. One, all that I will say comes directly from my heart, a place of knowing and not theory. Two, and most important, I would like you all to know why I am here today. I am not here for myself. I am here for each of you. Fruit trees do not bear fruit for their own benefit, but for the benefit of others. I hope in some way you will benefit from the message and the fruit within. I am exactly where I am meant to be. This moment is not a mistake or a coincidence. Neither is it happenstance that you are here experiencing this moment with me. We have arrived here together for a reason. Life is abundant with moments that have the potential to be profoundly life-changing. I believe this moment to be no different. There was a time not too long ago, in fact, that I did not find myself worthy or deserving of moments such as this one. In many ways, I did not see myself as a person who had the pedigree or could be an example, a positive example for others. Often there was a persistent question, why me? As a child, I felt expendable. I was emotionally, mentally, and physically mistreated. I was projected not to graduate high school after failing ninth grade twice. I've never been wealthy or well off. I've never been the most intelligent person in the classroom or most likely to succeed. And then one day I understood that is exactly why me. That's why I belong here.
That's why I deserve every recognition I have ever received, including this one, all earned through trials and overcoming challenges. Not for me, but so all those who can relate will know what is possible, that there is a greater potential beyond the statistics. That's why I am here today, to ensure the trees are nurtured, that the light is tended to and has fuel so it can continue to burn and light the way for others. The sun, for instance. Think of all the life it is responsible for merely by existing in its purpose. Now, imagine all the life that will cease to exist once that light is extinguished. I want you all to be sure to nurture the orchards of life and fuel the fires around you. The world truly depends on it. Lions are beautiful, terrifying, and fascinating creatures. One day it dawned on me why they are considered the king of the jungle. It's not because they are the biggest or the strongest. It is their mindset. They run towards while others run away. But sometimes that hippo decides to turn around and stand up to the king. And even though dozens of times before they ran, the hippo says, "Not today." Fear is the lion that exists in our mind. It will always have the advantage as long as we run from it. We are greater than our fears. We just have to turn around, face, and run towards them. Whatever your past experience is, however traumatic, I promise you, your potential is greater. And all that happened to you can also be the thing that happens for you. I'm going to share a Facebook post that I wrote. That should make this valid. Believe until you know. Be mindful of the seeds you sow. Water until it grows. Believe until you know. Belief is important. Knowing is special. Words and rhetoric have tremendous power, but actions create reality. So, I humbly accept this recognition, not only on behalf of myself, but for all who can relate. Thank you.
All right, we're almost to the end. I just want to share a few closing thoughts, and then I'll turn the time back over to Amir for the Weber Speaks. Oh, I'm sorry. No way. I would never do such a thing. I apologize. We will now have remarks from our president, Brad Mortensen. Please forgive me.
Good evening, everyone. I wasn't going to say anything about it. I'm going to skip to the next part of the program because it's truly, and I get the opportunity to speak a lot in my role, right? But there are a few venues that are more intimidating for me to speak than at this speech show in front of such amazing students and the messages that you've delivered this evening. And I'm going to use this too. And our faculty who teach this, and all the students who've been in the class, and then to know that this year's award recipient is a gentleman who I deeply respect and admire, Amir Jackson. It is just really humbling now for me to speak in front of all of you. And in thinking about speech, and we talk about the words and the structure and all of that, but what struck me so much this evening, hearing each of you, Ellie, Morgan, Joseph, Cameron, and David, and Amir, more than the words or the structure, was the power from your heart that each of your presentations conveyed to me and inspired me, each one of you. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for our faculty and all the organizers of this event who allow us to be inspired through speech of our students and our community leaders who truly signify what we can do through the speech is one thing, but through sharing our hearts with each other is really powerful to me. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here and have my heart enriched through all of you. Thank you.
See, this is what you get when you have the JV team in. So now I'll give a few closing thoughts and then turn the time back over to Amir. On the first day of class, in pretty much all of my classes, I start out with a question to get my students to think. And I ask, what's the definition of communication? And very often I get blank stares back like, oh crap. And if you really think about it, like how would you define communication? It's a little bit like trying to describe what salt is to somebody who's never tasted it before. You know exactly what it is, but trying to actually put your finger on it is kind of difficult. And this is something that I've thought a lot about. As a communication scholar, I thought that I should have a pretty good definition just ready to go if anybody ever asked me. So this is the definition of communication that I came up with. It's the creation and negotiation of the meaning of reality. Very often, we talk about communication as a soft science, as something that is kind of frou-frou, that's not the real work that goes on. And I think that is the exact opposite of the way we should think about it. If communication really is the creation and negotiation of the meaning of reality, we need to start thinking about what reality we are communicating into being. What reality do you create? What reality do you negotiate? And what realities do we allow to be created and negotiated without us giving our input? One of the things that I think is so special about not just tonight, but about public speaking and the way that we teach it, not just at Weber State, but in lots of communication departments across the country, we're empowering students to create and negotiate their reality. And that is a very powerful skill. And it's something that we shouldn't take lightly. We shouldn't talk about as if it's a secondary thought, that it's something that we do in addition to what the real things are that we do. Communication is the real things that we do. And without it, nothing else can be created. Countries don't exist without being communicated into being. Wars don't start without being communicated into being. They don't end without being communicated out of being. Communication does all of that. And if we're not very good at it, if we haven't learned how to communicate, then we're just bystanders. We're watching reality happen without our input. And so I hope that you understand that as you take these communication classes, maybe it was just something that you had to get through in order to get to wherever else you're going. But I hope that you recognize that the things that you learned in this class over this semester are incredibly valuable. And if you think back over all of the things that you studied, and all the things that you learned, and all the things that you practiced, I think that you'll find that the skills that you've developed are going to be invaluable to you as you go throughout whatever you do in your life. Being a good communicator, being able to understand how to share your message and share your ideas and get other people on board with you is something that you should be able to know and take with you so that you can create the reality that you want in the world. Thank you.
Okay, my friends, we have come to the close. You got to turn that on. Oh, so sorry. Okay, so we have come to the closing, and before we leave, we want to do a call and response. How many of you have ever been to a Baptist church? All right then. So when the pastor says, "Can I get an amen?" Amen. That's a call and response. So there's on your pamphlets here, right? There's a part where in purple it says Weaver Speaks. This is the Weaver Speaks anthem. All right, we're going to do this together as a congregation. All right, I want to feel the spirit, y'all. Okay, so when an answer to a problem is needed, Weaver Speaks. All right, that was about 40% spirit. When conflict or justice demands resolution, Weaver Speaks. Okay, that was about 78. Should fear threaten to silence the voice of freedom, Weaver Speaks. You all have a good night. Thank you.
Did you guys make sure you said hi to her? She has somewhere to be.